Sensei Adam from Cuff, just doing a little bit of a review of my thoughts on last Saturday, Cuff 12, and the fights and some of my opinions of what happened. So first fight with Adonia Charles and Nail Mohammed, fantastic fight. 3 rounds, both these guys were very green amateur guys. They went the distance, but Niall pulled it off, and I thought that was the correct decision. It was a good fight. Corwin DeAndrew from Guyana versus Hammond Clark. I think Hammond just did not expect that Corwin was going to come in so hard at the start, and kind of took Hammond by surprise and was able to sink in the rear naked choke pretty early. Ryan Thomas versus Ander Lacan. I think, this was the first time Ryan stepped into the cage. Ander has been there before, even though he's had a couple of losses, but Ander really came out. He kind of showed that he also had a ground game, or he was trying to improve on his ground game, and he took Ryan by surprise and was able to finish him. Cadane Hope versus Stefan Rollins. That was a rematch. Cadane Hope is an absolute animal. He took control of the fight from the start. It was very deliberate, and it was a good fight. Good job, Cadane. Kareem Hope against Cameron Sandy. I think Kareem came in hard as well, just like his brother, with a big takedown at the beginning, but it was immediately reversed by Cameron, and we thought that Cameron had a good top position for a while. Then they were able to stand back up, and then Kareem took him down again, and Cameron reversed it again. So I think it was really back and forth that first round, and I think that first round caught Kareem by surprise. But Cameron looked like he was a bit disappointed in himself, because the second time when he came out in the second round, he was really he was too much at ease and didn't look like if he was in a fight. And I think Kareem capitalized on him and was able to finish him. Micah Espinay versus Anthony Cumberbatch. This was rather disappointing one for me, but we go with the referee and the experience with the referee and Johnny Bedford in terms of he's the first man in the cage. He's the one that is right there with them to hear and to be able to save them if he thinks that they were going to be in danger. I think Mark had good top position with a nice takedown. Was beating him on his strikes at the start, and got Micah to his back, and Micah was in guard, I guess, and threw up a arm bar, and there was according to Mark, he grunted, and according to the ref thought that he shouted out, or I don't know if he said tap out, but he shouted out. I don't think he said tap out, but he shouted out, and Johnny thought that his arm was hurt, so he decided as an amateur, and we went over this in the rules with amateurs. These amateurs go to work the next day because this is not their career. They're trying to do this to get experience and so on. So I think Johnny was just really trying to save Mark from what could have been worse, and unfortunately Mark thought that it was the wrong call. Got very upset, and but he did handle it well in the cage, and was very professional about it. And for that specific fight, they agreed that they were going to have a rematch. So that was going to be a rematch in the next event. Ruel Henry versus Prem Jagdo. Prem is a true warrior. Prem took the fight 1 hour before getting in the cage, actually, when Kevin Bowen decided that he was going to step out of the fight at that point in time. And then there was a gentleman's agreement downstairs that they were going to keep it standing, because Ruel is a far better grappler than Prem. But Prem is also a great kickboxer. So with the little notice, they decided, okay, well, Ruel said he would, because he had a full camp, he would try and keep it standing, which they did until Prem decided to what looked like an illegal knee to the head when Ruel went down for a bit, and then coaches and everybody said game changed, right? So and I kind of agree with that, because with the amateurs we don't need to the head, and if you want to keep it standing, then you should stick to the rules. But I'm sure Prem didn't mean anything by it, because at the end of the day he took the fight last minute. He wasn't preparing for a fight. So in instinct, a fight is a fight. If he saw a knee, he took the knee, and that was it. And then eventually In the second and third rounds, they went to the ground, but Prem was able to handle his own ground with Ruel. And then we had a unanimous decision towards Ruel, but it was still a fantastic fight. Nevertheless, seeing that it went 3 rounds and Prem only had an hour's notice, and well, Ruel only had an hour's notice as well too of the game change. Jeffrey Rangel versus Andrew Abraham. My humble opinion, I think that Andrew Abraham was going for the front headlock way too often or way too much. He went for the entire fight when he should have abandoned it and done something else. I think that Andrew's striking game needs to improve a lot as well too. He really looked a bit uncomfortable striking. Jeffrey, however, did dominate the fight. Even though he was in the headlock position for a lot of times, he was in top position. So it was 3 rounds and Jeffrey took the win. Then we went to the girl fight, Romy Carrera versus Chelsea Little. This one was another controversial one because Romy Carrera was the first Venezuelan woman to step in the cage, and she was fighting Chelsea Little from the States. There was a lot of hand grabbing to the cage, and I noticed Johnny kind of gestured to Romy a couple of times by slapping her hand off the cage, but I thought it was a little excessive, the amount of times that he had to do that, and I think that kind of threw off Chelsea's game a bit, because Chelsea was trying to take her down and spending a lot of energy and so on trying to take her down to get to a ground game type of fight, and it wasn't happening. But eventually Romy somehow sucked in a guillotine, which was able to finish Chelsea. So that fight, I mean, I would have loved to see a rematch of that fight myself too, because I think that the amount of times that she held the cage certainly, could have changed the game a lot for Chelsea. So yeah, I didn't particularly like that. The Anthony Joseph versus Julio Manuel Amangol Villamil. Right, Anthony Joseph is a record-breaking amateur fighter with 4 wins last year, and he was he was a big fan. Sorry, not big fan, big kind of favorite there. And he was going up against a Cuban who had never fought before, and it was a real back and forth in the first round. And Anthony wanted to kind of showcase his skills, but at the end of the first round, Anthony got hit with a punch from Julio, and I swore he was knocked out. And he was on the floor for quite a while before Julio actually decided to step to go on top of him and to throw a couple more punches at him. His mouth, Anthony's Joseph mouth guard actually flew out of his mouth, right? And I think because Julio really and truly was a boxer, right, who had never done MMA, that was his debut fight. He didn't follow down on Anthony because he really thought that Anthony was knocked out. He thought it was a walk away, like a Roy Nelson kind of walk away knockout punch, right? Which I humbly thought it was too. I thought that the fight should have been stopped, but referee didn't think so at the time, and maybe it was the right decision at the time. I don't know, but Anthony had the opportunity to recover during the time in between rounds, and then came back and was able to get the takedown on Julio, and Julio, without having a ground game, tapped out, and it wasn't even by a submission, he just tapped out. So my humble opinion, I thought that the fight should have been stopped in the first round, but it is what it is, and Anthony came back and took the win. And then Stephen White versus Paul Fisher, that was an amazing fight. Paul Fisher definitely got Warrior of the Night, because Stephen was beating him to the punch, for 3 minutes of the fight. Stephen was hitting him with some what seemed like very hard shots, but at the same time, Paul kept on moving forward, even though the shots were landing flush. He kept on eating the punches like if they were dinner. Or if you looked like he was possessed almost. He had hit so much and just walking through it. And then no attempts to take down, no attempts for takedowns or anything like that. It was strictly a stand-up war in this one. And then eventually, Paul was able to slow Stefan down, which I think really kind of won him the fight, because he was able to hit Stefan quite a couple of body shots, which I think winded Stefan and took his gas tank away from him.
Ski lock, every blood clot block with the tree top sound them a WhatsApp chat me na ease.
Yeah? Alright, so sorry about that. My phone started to ring. Hopefully it doesn't ring again. Anyway, so yeah, so Paul started to take the win out of Stefan with some, extremely hard body shots, which I think took the gas away from him. And I think that's what
Ski lock, every
that person obviously seems to want me really bad. So he rang again. Anyway, so yeah, and then Paul was able to land a liver shot with a kick, and he did an amazing switch punch, because he's a southpaw. He did an amazing switch punch to Orthodox and hit him with the right hand, and I think that was really what did it for Stefan and dislocated his jaw. He fell to the ground, but as he fell to the ground, he was able to roll to the back, almost like a cockroach on his back. Looked like he wanted to try and pull Paul along into his guard, and Paul had to finish him off, because Stefan wasn't ready to be finished off at that point in time. He still looked like he had a lot of fight in him, even though at the time we didn't see that his jaw was dislocated. So, props to Paul for Warrior of the Night, because he came back from a severe beating from Stefan, and props to Stefan for an amazing fight. Next fight was the pros, Franklin Mireles versus Josh Watkins. Franklin Mireles from Venezuela versus Josh Watkins. It seemed like there was a completely big mismatch. Franklin was 5-2, Josh was 10-1, but Josh was just the way more athletic, bigger fighter. He just was completely dominant. He was just over dominant in that fight. And Josh won pretty easy with the ground and pound. Pedro Acosta versus Don Mago, another title fight for the lightweight championship. This one we're going to have to review, because there were quite a couple of things that happened in this fight that didn't seem right. And the most concerning one is there were some elbows that finished Don. Right? Don was in a double leg position against the cage, with Pedro's back against the cage, and Pedro started to rain down some elbows, and we've seen these elbows before from a previous fight at Cup 5 with Dwayne Hines, but it didn't look quite like Dwayne's elbows. Dwayne's elbows were more arcing, okay, and Pedro's own looked a lot more straight up and down, and there were so many of them. Right? There were like 30 something elbows, and then there was a point in time where he grabbed the whole of his own hand and he started to elbow. So there are lots of things that pinpointed that may have been illegal shots, and even though they may have landed to the side of Don's head, whether at whatever part of the body it lands, once it comes from 12 to 6, it's illegal. So we have to review it. We have to take the official fight footage and review it, look at it again, see which elbows did it damage to knock Don out, and then if it is that the elbows were deemed illegal, then we're going to call it a no contest, and these guys are going to have to fight again for that title. We'll strip Pedro of the title, and they'll have to fight again. But at the end of the day, at the moment in the night, we have to go with what the referee decides. He was the first person, or the person with the closest view, the person to see what was going on. We cannot overrule the referee at that point in time. We have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Plus, he is a very experienced fighter himself, and he's been refereeing for us for a very long time, and he knows what he's doing. So just to let everybody know, everybody who's concerned about that fight in particular, that fight is certainly under review, and we will let everybody know what our conclusions are when we've gone through the fight footage. Sion Ara versus Bojan Pladnjakovic, which was the main event. That was it certainly did look like these guys were pro. They were very, very composed. They were feeling each other out in the first round, trying to test the water, trying to see what skill set were, they didn't want to go in too hard and too aggressive at the start to get caught in something stupid. They looked like very mature fighters, very, very mature fighters. There was a back and forth with leg kicks and then some clenching on the cage, but nothing too much in the first round. And in the second round, same thing pretty much happened, and then eventually Bojan happened to catch him in a guillotine. The same thing that Sion unfortunately lost to in his first run in the cage against Danny Bouclair. And he got into a guillotine, and it was very, very deep. However, Sion did look like he trained for that, because he did what he needed to do to try and get out, and he flipped over. But Bojan, being so well trained himself, was able to back roll and follow him into it, and was able to extend his body and get the submission. So all in all, it was a good event. We had quite a bit of people. We were honored to have the Attorney General at the event, the Honorable Faris Al-Rawi. We've had many VIP guests that were there, very influential people in society, and we had a great crowd in general as well too, that were very supportive of the fighters from all over Trinidad and Tobago. We were very happy to have Johnny Bedford as our referee, Brandon Quick as our commentator, Sensei Brian Chinleung as our head judge, Joe Moses, Joel Matheson, and Richard Nanku were also judges. So we were really happy to have some experienced guys there helping us out, and all our sponsors, thank you very much for being there and having faith in us, and hopefully in the next event, we'll still be able to be ironing out these little issues that crop up every once in a while. But just to let you guys know, once again, the most concerning one for the night was certainly the Pedro Acosta and the Don Magbu fight, and that is going to be under review. So look out for my thoughts or my conclusions to the review in the next couple of weeks, about 2 weeks or so, because I have to get the fight footage and then be able to send it away to some very experienced judges and referees, which good friends of mine, and let them make a decision, and then we'll go from there. Guys, thank you very much. That was CUF 12. Look out for CUF 13 in November 2017.